Many runners stretch their calves, foam roll their hips, and hope their pain goes away. But the real problem for many runners isn't just tightness, it's weakness in the posterior chain. Weak glutes, hamstrings, gastroc soleus are one of the biggest reasons runners develop things like knee pain, Achilles tendon pain, shin splints, hip pain, even plantar fasciitis. Today in this video, I'm going to show you how runners should train their posterior chain to run faster and stay injury-free. If you're new to my page, I'm Dr. Ray Peralta, physical therapist and run coach, and over the past 10 years, I've helped hundreds of runners get pain-free. So why weak posterior chain leads to running injuries? See, many runners only run and completely ignore strength training. They just skip training altogether, or even those who do strength train often do it at too light of a stimulus to make any meaningful change. They're usually just training muscular endurance, and muscular endurance does have its place, but oftentimes they're not progressing the weights. They're usually staying at the same weights week after week, month after month. So they're really not getting any stronger. So in fact, either they don't do it at all, or they're doing just too light of stimulus for strength training. The other thing is many folks who run as adults tend to have sedentary lifestyles, right? Maybe they have a job where they sit all day, which also reduces activation of those same posterior chain muscles. Like your glutes tend to be a bit weaker because you're sitting on it for like eight hours a day, 10 hours a day. All the same thing, even the muscles of your hamstrings, even calves tend to be a bit weaker. Sometimes people tend to be more quad dominant. Their quad overpowers their hamstring when they're running, so that could put more stress on the knee, for example. Another thing is that a lot of people don't realize is running is a high impact sport. It can put 2 to 3 times your body weight every time your foot hits the ground, right? So if your tissues aren't strong enough to also absorb that, then it gets transmitted to the joints, and you start getting things like shin splints, stress fractures. Again, the runner's knee, breakdown in the joint or in the hip joint, even hip pain, even in some cases, even back pain, right? So you have to, ensure that your body's strong enough to handle the demands of running. See, running alone isn't enough to strengthen your legs. It's good for cardiovascular endurance. And yes, you can improve like general aerobic fitness endurance, but it's not the best way to strengthen. You have to do proper strength training. And then when you don't have these strong muscles, again, the load shifts from the muscles to the ligaments, the tendons, the joints itself, right? And that's where you get all these common overuse injuries that I described previously. And unfortunately, it just gets worse when you're doing longer distance events. So there's a reason why marathon runners tend to have the highest rate of injuries compared to folks who are just training for a 5K, right? As a physical therapist, year after year, see people end up getting hurt when they're training for the marathon because now they're doing even more mileage, more days of running for the marathon training, and yet they still don't do the strength training. Not everyone, of course, not everyone, but a good majority of the runners I see don't do any strength training at all, and then they start taking up strength training because that's how we start rehabbing their injuries. And if you want to copy this Google Doc to learn more about strengthening your posterior chain for running, I'm sharing it in my free online run group. Click the link in the description to join. So how runners should train their posterior chain? Essentially, strength training. You want to strengthen essentially the muscles in your behind, right? Your glutes, your hamstrings, your lower back, things like squats, hip thrusters, deadlifts, and then obviously for the calf raises, soleus raises. For the calf, it's both do straight-legged and also bent knee soleus. It's very important for propulsion strength, for ability to take off into triple extension. The stats, if I recall, I believe it's the calves, just the muscle of the lower leg are responsible for like 50% of the force to keep you upright and propel you push you forward for speed. And also train single leg movements, things like single leg Romanian deadlifts or single leg deadlift, staggered squats, single leg squats, single leg calf raises to also help strengthen your body to match the demands of running, because essentially running is a series of single leg hops. Other thing is also doing explosive training, things like squat jumps, single leg jumps, box jumps, drop jumps. You also want to train explosive power as well. So not just heavy lifting, but also explosive lifting. And then you could also train your muscular endurance, which many people, when they do strength training, they tend to default to doing high repetition work to train muscular endurance. But when you're training maximal strength, you have to also do low reps, for example, 5 rep max for the squat or the deadlift, right? You also have to train very heavy. And then for the smaller muscle groups like the calves, yes, you could do higher reps as well. But regardless, you want to train 2 to 3 times per week. And you want to fatigue the muscle. There's different protocols out there. For people who are very busy, I'm a fan of single set. Now, if you have more time in Shin, you can also do multiple sets as well. But for most folks, single set to muscular fatigue is good enough to get a majority of the benefits of strength training without overly fatiguing your legs and then putting you at risk for overuse injuries, because yes, you can overdo strength training and then put yourself at overuse injury. Now, if you're combining high volume running, high volume strength training, that's also not good either. So, be smart with the strength training so it doesn't interfere with your running, where you're doing so much of that. Now your legs feel so fatigued that you can't even enjoy running anymore. So that's why I'm a big fan of just doing single set to fatigue, unless you have good recovery levels. You have more time on your hands, or maybe you're a bit younger and you're able to recover quicker. You could do more higher volume strength work as well. So here's some type of strength works, like exercises I like. The deadlift. I like the sumo deadlift to get to train the posterior chain a bit better. Box squat. You could also do a wide stance squat. You got your calf raises here, but also the bent knee, a soleus raise. There's a single leg soleus raise in the picture there. And then you got the prone hamstring curl. You can also do this on a machine as well. You can do it with ankle weights. This is a resistance band hamstring curl, strengthen the hamstring muscle. There's also other hamstring exercise I like is also the Nordic curl, hamstring sliders where you slide the legs. Again, there's so many different exercise variations out there. Essentially, you want to pick the right exercise that's challenging for your muscle to fatigue it, but also without getting hurt or overdoing it either. So what happens when runners strengthen their posterior chain? Oftentimes they improve their running economy, right? When you improve your running economy, you're more efficient. The numbers vary, but I believe it's like anywhere from like 2 to like 8% improvement in running efficiency. So now you're able to run faster for longer without getting hurt. You can have a more powerful stride. You can have that triple extension, right, which is that hip extension, knee extension, ankle plantar flexion for takeoff. That's that backside of mechanics when you're running. Greater ability to absorb forces, so more resilient. So you're not developing these overuse injuries, right? So now you're having less stress on your knees, your shins, your hips, your Achilles tendon, and higher tissue capacity, right? So now you could recover between workouts. So now you feel fresher. You're able to do your speed workouts with higher quality, your tempo runs and your long runs. And you're just more consistent with training. Running becomes more enjoyable. It doesn't start feeling like a drag or a slog, because now your body's just strong enough to handle the demands of running. I've done this for myself. I improved my running performance. I was running like an 8-minute mile. I got it down to like a 6-minute mile, just really doing targeted proper strength training, especially the posterior chain. And I've seen the same for a lot of the runners I work with. Even when they're injured, we strengthen the posterior chain to help them get rid of the pain, right? You typically, whether it's knee pain or Achilles pain. So it helps both on the pain side and on the performance side to like help you run faster for longer. So I currently have 2 spots open to work with me one-to-one, because the tips I shared here, sure, yes, they can work, but if you're not, sometimes you get stuck and you need one-to-one guidance. That's why working with a coach could be very beneficial. So I also help coach runners to get stronger, run faster, and also help with pain relief as well. I'm also a physical therapist. So if you're curious, there's a link to apply in the description. First come, first serve. So running alone doesn't build enough strength to protect your body from the force of running, right? When runners strengthen their posterior chain, right, the glutes, hamstring, calves, soleus, they increase tissue capacity, improve propulsion, and reduce injury risk. So add 2 to 3 strength sessions per week with progressive loading and single leg work to become a stronger, more resilient runner.